most scenic and most difficult highways, the final leg of the supreme test of sheer driving skill, the Monte Carlo Rally. From a dozen different cities all over the continent, the cars converge on the Principality, all taking the same hair-raising route over the Alps in the home stretch. Something of a shocker to the quiet mountain villages along the way. Over 357 miles of winding, twisting, icy, treacherous road, racing the clock and fighting to keep within a complex set of speed and safety rules.
That's what it was like in the days of black and white. But just look at this, glorious colour and a sight to gladden the eye of any enthusiast. The paddock at Brooklands, packed to overflowing with a mouth-watering selection of classic cars, ready to start the 9th Monte Carlo Challenge. And in there amongst them all, Gladys, our 32-year-old Volvo, about to be put through her paces. Gladys, who for years has never done anything more strenuous than trundle the streets of Bolton in search of her previous owner's old age pension, is about to climb and descend every mountain col between here and the Mediterranean, as we attempt to follow in the wheel tracks of the legends of rally.
First car will be leaving at 10 o'clock for the boat at Dover at 2 o'clock. Welcome to Brooklands.
I wouldn't care, but I don't even do this with my own car at all. I would never think of polishing it like this, but something's driving me on to Monte Carlo, and that includes polishing the wretched car. There's a record field of 180 entries, including 17 other Volvo Amazons like ours. There's a crew of 3 in Peter Cox's Rover 95, 1 to drive, 1 to navigate, and a 3rd to jump out and get the time card stamped. They say you need to be a bit of an athlete for this job, and people have been in training. But what have I got? A chain-smoking pal who last trained on the playing fields of Harrow 40 years ago. I seek words of comfort from Dave Whittock, who runs the Nissan Rally team.
Do you think this is sort of some exercise to recapture our ill-gotten youth?
I'm sure.
Yeah?
Absolutely sure.
Is it working?
I think, you know, I keep thinking to myself, I wished I could go back to rallies, you know, like it was yesterday. And this is a good example. And I think this is your first time.
It is indeed.
And I think you'll find that it's very competitive. It's extremely competitive, and when you start to see, as you will, as you go off down to the south, you will see crews that maybe not quite so good with their driving and on their maps. They'll take shortcuts and take the same penalty as you, and then you'll start to see how competitive
little horns
it is
come out.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I think it's just great. I mean, I love it, and all the people, it's very, very nice.
Well, certainly when I was sort of first coerced into doing it, they said it's a bit of a gentleman's run down to Monte Carlo. But as you say, once you see that route down on the map...
No, forget it.
Yeah.
When you leave Annecy to go to Monte Carlo on Wednesday and you have to drive through the night, then tell me if it's a little bit of an easy route.
That's when I'll start to think I'm a bit too old for this.
At 4 o'clock in the morning, I promise you, you'll wish you were home in bed.
Well, let's hope we all make it safely down to Monte Carlo, Dave.
If we all make it safely to Monte Carlo, I'll be the first to buy you a drink.
Excellent, good man, I'll hold you to that.
Well, I'm glad we're not going in that. Flying jackets or no flying jackets. Peking Paris veteran David Hardman has abandoned his Aston in favour of a 1929 4.5 litre Bentley. Talking of veterans, why is Russell Brooks off to Monte Carlo?
Well, why not? It's very, very good fun, isn't it? Who can resist going to Monte Carlo in February?
Absolutely, and if the weather keeps like this, it'll be great, won't it?
It'll be fabulous.
Yeah.
I hope we have some snow. I feel a bit cheated if we don't.
I think we all will, especially after rushing out and buying all those.
I want to use the snow shovel and I want to put the snow chains on.
And then it'll feel like Monte Carlo.
That's right.
Because you've never done the event before, have you? Even in your
I've,
heyday of rallying?
I've ice-snowed on Monte Carlo for a lot of drivers, but that's my only involvement in it ever. But of course, when I very first started rallying, 1962, 1963, as a club driver, and this is the style this event is recreating.
It's great. I think the people who say it's a gentleman's run down to Monte Carlo are in for a bit of a shock, aren't they? Once you see that route out of Annecy.
I had no clue about the event whatsoever.
Oh my lord.
No, we just decided we're going to have fun.
Yeah.
It very obviously is very relaxed and easy going up to Poligny, but then we've got to get the calculators out and get the old brain matter work. At least my co-driver has.
Well, yes, you just drive the thing.
That's it.
Well, good luck anyway. We hope to see you down in Monte Carlo.
Vickers used to own the Brooklands site, and they built the Viscount here, the world's first turboprop airliner, which is in the Brooklands Museum, which is where perhaps some of my fellow competitors should be.
Now, you're going 3 up in this marvellous example of an Austin 2200. I've got to ask first, what's the combined age of your team?
Yes, about 183 years.
Oh my God.
With some 125 years of driving experience between.
Well, there you are. So you're
you're
prime candidates to make it to Monte Carlo then with all that
I'm
experience.
certain we are. But if you look closely at the front of the car, you'll see that we have an invalid badge in the front, and there can't be many invalids competing on the Monte Carlo.
Well, at least you'll be all right for a parking place in Monte Carlo
I
then,
think
won't
that's
you?
the only reason we're taking it.
First away on the long road to Monte Carlo will be David Brockjest's impressive 1938 V12 Lagonda. Much more fun than the Spartan vintage AC he used last year. We've christened him Biggles, with his partner down as Algie. Those in the Vintagens class have a slightly less arduous route, but it'll still be hard work, and at 8 miles to the gallon, they'll need to spend a lot of time and money in French filling stations. Richard Mann's Lagonda M45 actually competed in the 1936 Monte with Richard's father behind the wheel, and as the first crews get underway, I catch up with rally director Philip Young.
It goes down to Annecy. We all meet up with the cars from Oslo and Rothenburg in Germany, and the Dutch starters, of course, coming in with 65 cars. And with 180 cars, well, we don't get any bigger.
No, excellent, isn't it?
It's amazing.
Yeah. There's a tremendous amount of interest out there for historic rallying, isn't there? Yeah.
And this has grown every year. We've probably reached the limit now.
Right. Now, after Annecy, that's when the competition really starts, doesn't it?
It does steadily get harder, and as it goes through the Alps, there's an all-night section, and we're obviously more tired, and the car's more worn out, we're all more worn out, and the last 24 hours are the toughest bit.
Right.
Not for nothing do they call it the toughest winter motoring challenge.
Lord David Steele is a passionate rally fan, and he sets off on his 6th Monte Carlo challenge, heading around the Brooklands banking in his Riley 1.5, as we say goodbye to our loved ones. You'd think I was going across the seas to fight a foreign foe. I was going to be away years.
You are.
No, actually joining us in Douvres. I am. I'm off to fight a foreign foe. 179 other foreign foes, all out to beat me to Monte Carlo. I'll be happy if we make it in stages, Dover being the first port of call, literally. And all things being equal, Calais.
That's down to P&O.
Yes. Then it's Bologna. That'll be good if we get there in one piece.
Have more marinair for dinner.
Yes. But I am looking forward to it. It is an adventure. Something I never thought I would do. An hysterical Monte Carlo rally. The early starters were already pounding down the M25 as we waited for our start time and admired the historic buildings where so many famous names had gone before us. There really was a feeling of excitement in the air as we moved forward to the start line.
That's the old Brooklands, very famous clubhouse. It's Malcolm Campbell and all the great drivers of yore were. So we're on hallowed ground here.
We are indeed. There's a minute's tick away to the 10:35 start for car number 134.
Where do you expect to be reseeded then?
Third. No, I expect to be reseeded in Annecy along with everybody else.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and away you go.
Thank you.
Alright.
Sail about. Car 134 is finally off. There are still a few spectators around to cheer and clap the later numbers away. The question was, of course, would we and Gladys be up to the job? Out on the motorway, the Rumbold trio, father, son and uncle, rumble along in their Richard Longman-tuned Mark 7 Jag. Like us, this is their first rally. The first control is only a passage check to make certain we don't go straight down to Dover and miss out all the pretty bits in Kent. Sandra Holt and Pat Thompson are old stagers in their X-Works MGA. This is their 9th Monte Carlo challenge and they've won every ladies award so far. Veteran of 8 real Montes in the 50s and 60s is 71-year-old Willie Kay. Willie was a works navigator for Standard Triumph and also partnered John Sprinzel in his famous Sebring Sprite. Most of the controls will be sited inside pubs and bars, which not only means a few extra seconds lost in finding it when time is tight, it's also handier for the thirstier amongst us. We pass through Smarden, which calls itself the prettiest village in England, although there are probably many that would also lay claim to that title, including Chilham. We also pass through this pleasant little village en route to the next control. The queue for the passage check, included a fine selection of British classics, the Rumble's Jag, Giles's MGA, Rose's MGB and Turner's XK140. On the final dash down the M20 into Dover, we're in no hurry and are overtaken by Hall's Volvo and Ring's Healy 3000. But soon we're checking in with Stena Line, and we're still in the lead, along with 179 others, of course. There was time on the quayside to admire the glamorous machinery. Ralph Jones's DB4, number 127, obviously a prime candidate for a Concours Award. And there's Gladys. And pristine now, but destined to hit the French scenery before the night was out, David Russell's TR3A, number 104. Pickles and Algie have been joined by Ginger to discuss the Raleigh HRG's creaky steering. HRGs went on to build their own Meadows engine sports car, the 1500, which won Alpine Cups in 1948 and 1951. Arthur New is carrying no less than 3 passengers in that Raleigh Pathfinder, with the spares filling the boot. Where on earth is their luggage? And of course, maps have to be studied, for after the quick run down to Boulogne, the rest of the 6-hour run to Troyes will be on back roads and country lanes. As final preparations are made, Lord Steele and his partner are equally keen on studying the political news of the day. With a deck full of classic cars, the good ship Stena set sail on a mild February day. And we're in for a smooth crossing across the channel. Next stop for us, Calais. Definitely a bit cool this side of the channel, but the sun's still shining. And it really feels as if we've started now, on French soil, on the long run down to Troyes. Everyone's in high spirits now. We're off and on our way, as the field passes the Channel Tunnel exit on the way down to Boulogne. There's no hurry on this section because there's no real timing on this first leg. Provided we visit all the passage checks and leave Troyes at our appointed hour tomorrow morning, we can do just about whatever we want. We could stop for dinner or nip into Paris for a taste of naughty French nightlife and still be leading the rally. Oh, if it was only that simple. Strangely, even though we only had to visit passage checks to make sure we'd followed the correct route, it was turning out to be a long day. Many crews were already feeling jaded, probably due to the excitement and adrenaline rush after the start, knowing we were finally off on our great adventure. Most of us just wanted to get to Troyes and into the hotel. As darkness falls, we're looking for a passage check in a deserted French village.
Looking for the bright lights. The Rue de la Bob and Dick. Reserved in France on Sunday night, they're all home watching Canal Plus.
There's the bar there.
Moulin de Noy, that's it. That's the bar.
All right, where do we go from here, Paul?
Home. We go into the bar.
Right, I shall go and park up.
Just go across
the road.
there, by that
No,
Peugeot.
but it'll proceed.
Notice we're, unlike the last place, we're the only ones here. The last place, there are 80 cars parked.
I haven't come the right way. That's myself.
There's the town hall. This is the joint. Bonsoir.
Bonsoir.
Comment ça va?
Ça va et vous?
Voilà. There's the gentleman stamping the book. Merci beaucoup.
Voilà.
Au revoir.
Bonne route.
Merci, merci. There's another competitor.
And we've just had our card stamped, our second stamping of the day, and now we're heading to Troyes and bed, thank the Lord. But it's very enjoyable up to now. We've had one or two minor problems, but that's what rallying's all about. And I'm thoroughly enjoying it. And it says the old town hall clock, it's 25 to 10, so we're not making bad time at all.
Only got 100k to go now.
Yep. Just how bad conditions have been for the last 100 kilometres of the running to the rest halt tonight at Troyes. It's been fairly thick fog and it's been patchy, and driving conditions really have been not too good, I must be honest with you. The last 100 kilometre run-in, when you're feeling a little bit tired, the last thing you want is thick fog like this. And I must be honest with you, we're looking forward to getting to the hotel and having a shower and getting into bed. It's been the end of what has actually been a long day.
That's where we can get petrol in the morning, Alan. If you want to go off route, this should be it's a right turn here.
Well, it was the right turn, but we missed it and spent the next 20 minutes thrashing about in the dark looking for the hotel. No penalty, just 20 minutes less sleeping time. Next morning, the freezing fog had thinned a little, but the sun had still to break through and spread its warmth. It was bitterly cold, and both cars and crews had to get warmed up before the off. No one likes an early start, even at the best of times. But this is one of the attractions of rallying, or so they tell me, battling not only your fellow competitors, but the elements as well. Rallies, however, wait for no one, and the first cars were soon off and away at 7 o'clock on the run down to Poligny, south of Dijon, where we would meet up with the competitors from the 5 other starting points in continental Europe: Biarritz, Benevento, Ludwig, Oslo and Rothenburg. Last night's little indiscretion had left its mark on Russell's TI. Gladys, however, was still in pristine condition, although, like most girls her age, rather reluctant to turn over first thing in the morning. Of the original 180 starters, 19 had already been penalised, and the rally really hadn't got going yet. Jeff Marriott had time to go back to England and repair a leaking head gasket on his Mini, and was to rejoin 2 days later and still get down to Monte Carlo. At last the sun breaks through, blinding Dave Whittock and co-driver Ernie Waldron in their Cooper S. This is a 1293cc example, and as such is ineligible for the overall award, and therefore competes in the classic saloon competition. Troyes south to Poligny, 260 kilometres through some beautiful country roads far from the normal tourist route. Again, this is one of the attractions of this rally, visiting places you'd never normally see, and a few more besides if your navigator's not up to scratch. The lunch halt in the picturesque town square in Poligny was a relaxed affair, and gave us time for a word with Willie Kay on how the Monte Carlo Challenge compares with the Monte of old.
Well, it's very like it, except it really is much, much more difficult. In the early days, we just had to get from one town to another using the main roads, plenty of time. The only thing that could hold you up was snow in the mountains. Now we're on minor roads all the time, navigating like mad, having to watch the stopwatch for the regularity. This is really difficult work, this.
This year you've had a few problems with the car even before the start, I gather.
That's right. It was involved in an accident. Neither of us were in it, but it was involved in an accident. It rolled over about a week ago, and it's been very hard work to get it repaired and roadworthy in time.
Have you had problems with the navigation equipment, getting that ready?
Yes, there wasn't time to get that ready, but on the way down we'd managed to get we've got the mileometer thing working properly, and the compass is just about swung. I've left the car pointing into the sun now, thinking it's midday, this will be south, the compass should be saying south, so I've twiddled the things and it's saying south.
How do you see the event developing this year?
This loop that the organisers are making us do from Annecy to Annecy around the south side of the Lake of Geneva is very, very, very difficult. I think at the end of that an awful lot of people are going to have lost an awful lot of marks.
As Napoleon looks on, Jonathan Peck spends his lunch break fixing a problem with his Mini. But we too have problems of our own to contend with. Right, we've got a slight problem here, Nicky, which could develop into a major problem.
Yeah.
The dynamo's not charging. Just came on like that, no indication. Fan belt seems tight enough. Whether it's this relay or not, or what, I don't know, but we've got about 40 minutes to fettle it before we're due out, so and there isn't a mechanic in any of the garages in town. So it's up to your skill and expertise here to get it sorted. Because if you don't, it'll be your fault. Basically. So again, no warning whatsoever. We've just stopped at a passage check and it just tripped on. Could be a sticking relay, perhaps, I don't know. But how do you get into those? Can you get into them?
Fuse is outside, I don't think it's supposed to. That's a sort of slacker.
Meanwhile, I'll have a bite of my sandwich, because this is I couldn't face breakfast this morning.
From now on, all 180 starters from all over Europe are on the same route and the fun can begin. As we head south, not only will the hills get steeper and the roads narrower, making it difficult for the lower powered cars like ours to maintain what seems a very modest average speed of 32 miles an hour, but there are also the feared regularity sections to contend with. On these, the object is to maintain an exact average speed of, say, 46 kilometers an hour. The problem is that we're not told how long the section will be. It may be 40 kilometers, it may be 4. You never know when you'll round a corner and the marshals will be lying in wait for you. An early or late arrival will be penalised. You've got to get it spot on. Getting it spot on is no mean achievement, especially for novices like ourselves.
We feel as if we're on the Monte Carlo rally now. We've fixed our dynamo problem, a bit of a Heath Robinson repair with some gaffer tape. Most rally cars keep going with gaffer tape. Of course, you can see a little bit of snow now, so it really does feel as if we're getting into Monte Carlo rally territory.
Crawford and Blackwell on the first tight section of the rally. They dropped 2 minutes, with well over half the field, ourselves included, dropping time as well. We're no longer in the lead. How surprising.
Well, as you can see, there's even more snow now, and as I said before, it really does feel like we're on the Monte Carlo rally. We've just finished our first practice regularity section. The organisers very kindly allowed us a practice with no penalties, just to see if we've got the hang of it. And neither Paul nor I have done a regularity section before, and we were only 16 seconds out, so I feel pretty damn pleased about that.
The route from Peligny to Annecy included 3 passes in the Jura Mountains, all around 3,500 feet, plus 2 regularity sections. And as the leading cars arrived in the historic Lakeside Spa, 5 cars shared the lead, with another 40 or so clean on the road. The Schroyers Dickinson Rover 2000 was not one of them. They'd lost time on all 3 climbs and lay 85th overall. Meanwhile, out on the road, we were still having trouble with poor old Gladys.
Well, we've had a bit of a disastrous afternoon, to be honest with you, with this problem we've had with the regulator and the dynamo. It's cost us a bit of time, there's no question about it. And then, to compound our misery, the battery was absolutely flat. You can probably hear it missing there now. The battery was absolutely flat. 2 competitive sections from the end of today. We had to get a tow to get started. And we dropped 7 minutes on that section, which was a bit disappointing because we could have cleaned it. But that's what rallying's all about, isn't it? We're still enjoying it, we're still in the rally. We're confident we'll get the car fixed tonight. And we could be leading everybody into Monte Carlo.
Oh, what ill-founded optimism. The battery died on us just as we were coming into Annecy. Fortunately, Maria and Thomas Moore soon arrived with their massive drop-head Mercedes to lend a hand and shepherd us safely into the city. Cold and tired and feeling somewhat depressed, this was probably the low point of our rally so far.
Well, it's a nice sunny day. I'm surprised to see you on the road again.
Well, it is a nice sunny day, Paul, and I feel absolutely fantastic because the dramas of yesterday evening seem such a long way away now. We were quite depressed last night when we got into Annecy with the problems with what we thought was the regulator, but Peter Bottom, our serviceman's had a look at it this morning, and it's actual fact it's well, we don't have an alternator. The dynamo But what we've done, we bought a new battery, we've stuck that on, we've got a spare battery in the boot, we're going to keep going today, and we're going to try and move up the order. Sadly, we're lying 104th out of 180 this morning due to our time loss yesterday with our electrical problems, but undismayed, we're going to bash on. And looking forward to a good day.
Where are we?
Well, we're about 10 kilometres north of Annecy, heading towards the first competitive section, through the hills to the south-east of Geneva. And it's a great day for it too. Lovely blue skies, nice and sunny, crisp and fresh. And the car sounds as sweet as a nut this morning.
Gladys is good.
Gladys is doing well. She was a much maligned lady yesterday evening. We were blaming her for letting us down, but it was actually fact the incompetence of the two crew members who didn't know what they were doing. But now it'll be a good day today. I've got a feeling in my water.
Tuesday's route was an innovation for the Monte Challenge. It was a loop out from and back to Annecy, weaving through the Alps of the Haute-Savoie to the southeast of Geneva. But at least we could leave our luggage back in the hotel.
30 seconds to 300.
This is a typical regularity section, and Paul is trying to keep me at the right speed. An added complication on a regularity section is that we're not told what the actual speed will be until the marshal has counted us down, thrust a piece of paper through the window with the details on, and sent us merrily on our way. At this speed, we have to do 1 minute and 18 seconds for each kilometre we cover. So Paul's got to keep one eye on the stopwatch, one on the track meter, while still trying to keep me on the right road. If he sends me the wrong way, he's in danger of losing the plot altogether, and I must confess this can't happen. Paul reckons all I have to do is drive slowly. Drive slowly indeed. Any mistake and that drive slowly instruction suddenly becomes speed up. You've got 8 kilometres to do in 3 minutes. Oh, the fun of it all. And we never fell out once. Despite our best efforts, we're 17 seconds late on this particular section, and we thought we'd done quite well, but it was bettered by 85 crews. How on earth did they do it? We actually wrong-slotted in the traffic around Geneva, but thankfully regained the route without time loss.
Ah, we caught up with Mr. Whittack. He's obviously wrong-slotted. We've been caught out on the second regularity of the day, which was incredibly tight. We dropped something like 3.5 hours on the section. But then again, so did our rivals, so we're pressing on, we're still in it, and that's the main thing. We see the variety of vehicles on this event. There's a huge, great lumbering ship of the line ahead of us. And behind we've got a Rolls Royce, and in front of the Jaguar there's a Mini.
That was the Col de Corbière, a famous special stage from Monte Carlo rallies of old. And with a little bit of snow about, it really does give a feel that we're on our way to Monte Carlo now. For Volvo Amazon number 134, well, we dropped a minute on that stage due to a small navigational error. And I must confess, I was a bit annoyed because being an old, famous Monte Carlo stage, I really did want to clean it. But we didn't, and that was that. Still, we didn't fall out. That is the main thing. Most other people dropped time here too, but at least we're ahead of Robert Reeves's pretty 365 Porsche. They had 2 maximums yesterday and will end the day in 129th spot. They, like all the other competitors, will have time to admire some of the magnificent scenery we're passing through on our way down to Annecy. At the time control at the end of the Col de Corbière, Sue Noble checks in at Chevanos, while Peter keeps his huge 1924 Lanchester ticking over. They're followed into the control by the Brock Jess Lagonda, who've bent the front suspension in a traffic accident and are now down to 3 brakes. Algie jumps out to get the time card stamped, whilst Biggles remains at the controls. Characters like these are what historic rallying is all about. The Rally Association's marshalling team do a brilliant job. With a huge field of 180 cars, they have to man their post for up to 4 hours at a time, and then leapfrog ahead to man another one. And a glass of the local Chateau Delirious certainly helps the day along.
12:49.
David Alderson shows the strain after the climb and descent of the 4,000-foot Col de Corbière. Navigator Dennis Greenslade takes his time. They've cleaned it, the lucky so-and-sos.
Okay, here, Washington. Thank you. Hello. 165 over there, please. Thank you. 1265.
Barry Wood brings his immaculate Healy 3000 into control. This car used to belong to Sterling Moss and is an immaculate example of this particular mark. It's here that the organisers present us with a marked map. There's to be a regularity section in a maze of lanes above Evian-les-Bains. With 2 changes of average speed and tricky navigation, it all proves too much for some, including Paul, and he threatens to get out and leave me to it. Dutch builder Anton aan der Stegger is usually seen on these events in a massive Citroën DS19 Safari estate car. But as that is still recovering from its Peking to Paris adventures, he's riding this one in style in a beautiful Aston DB24. There's encouragement on this rally for everyone to try and dress the part. Jeff Gilbert and Tim Martell are certainly travelling in that spirit, even if they aren't up amongst the leaders. The main thing, though, is they're out and competing and thoroughly enjoying it. The marked map section was certainly the sting in the tail before the lunch halt at Evian-les-Bains. After lunch, the afternoon takes us higher and higher into ski land, and we pass through La Clusaz just as the kamikazes of the ski slopes are coming down the mountains and heading for the Blue Barn. Winner for the last 2 years, Monte Carlo has swapped his fin-tail Mercedes for a more manoeuvrable VW 1500. Whilst this X-Works London-Sydney DAF 55 is crewed by Paul and Mark of the DAF founding family, the Van Doorns. There's been a last-minute route change, but like us, Bean and Bergsma failed to spot that the arrival time at the next control has been altered too. They book in early and collect a 10-minute penalty. To us, that's dented pride, but for them, it meant a painful drop from 27th to 47th. Lord Steele is in trouble too. He's lost 3rd gear, which is rather careless of him. The similar Rally 1.5 from Portugal, crewed by Jose Segura Marques and Jose Braga da Cruz, will end the day 10 places behind us. Our new battery having enabled us to climb up the order from 104th to an amazing 92nd. Reg Ribbett's 1963 Mini Cooper is faring even worse. 3 maximums today mean they'll be reseated in 125th spot. Neil and Keith Fender are regulars on the challenge in their TR3A. They too are one of the 27 crews who check in early at Verrier. Like us, they couldn't wait to get to bed.
It's an absolutely fantastic morning again. We really have been blessed with some tremendous weather on this event, and Philip Young, Keith and his team have taken us through some magnificent terrain. I mean, the scenery yesterday was just awe-inspiring, it really was. And I mean, you look at this morning and the mist rising up through the valleys and a little bit of snow on the tops of the mountains, the sun shining, the car's fixed. Peter Badham and his service crew have done a sterling job overnight. They really have, to fix our dynamo. And like all service crews in rallying, they really are the unsung heroes. They never get the limelight. Nobody ever sort of gives them a pat on the back. In public anyway, they never do. And I think I'd like to say, on behalf of Paul and I, a big thank you to them, because we're in the rally still. All right, we're lying 92nd overall, but at least we're halfway up the field on our first event. And the car's going well. Gladys, she's doing well. And we're looking forward to a good day. We're in fine spirits.
And just look at this. This is real Monte country now. The third leg's 1,000-kilometre run to the Principality starts with the Col de Pré near Chambray. And we're now on the famous Col de Granier. Making a most extraordinary noise, Monte Carlo's VW heads the field up the pass. This is the beautiful sounding second place Volvo of David McRobert and Mick Rees. Three up in a Sunbeam Rapier, Shaw, Langdon and Blackett. They'd left Annecy in 5th place overall with a 10-second advantage over the Danish crewed Volvo of Anderson and Freiburg. Gerald Braithwaite and John Vipon had been absolutely spot on the first two regularities of the day and had moved up from 19th to 6th place overall in their little Mini Cooper. The daylight part of today's run will take us south to Cisteron, skirting Grenoble and climbing 12 cols, including the Chartreuse, the Coucheron and the Garcinets. And with the night section still to come, it's going to be a long, hard rally. Last year, David Ratcliffe suffered a broken gearbox in his Spartan Bentley Special. No such troubles this time round, though. Bert Dolk's pretty Alpha Giulietta Sprint was flying as we approach Saint-Pierre d'Entremont at the foot of the Col de Coucheron, location of many a Monty battle. On the other side of the col, Saint-Pierre-en-Chartreuse, that famous village with its square packed with spectators to watch the moutons, the rolls and the toivelings. We, for our part, are mere tourists in their wheel tracks, but after trying our hardest, we still have to let the brakes go down. More than 25%. Huber's maroon DB4 was caught out yesterday, and but for the ensuing 30-minute penalty, they'd actually be leading the rally. But his reckless pace couldn't last, and on the descent from the Chartreuse, he put it off, and only a hedge stopped the Aston dropping 30 feet into a farmhouse. Make a few mistakes like this one, however, and with the clock ticking away, you can soon find yourself behind time. Hang on, there was 3 cars in that first shot and now there are only 2. Where's the third one got to? They obviously think they're on a different route to everybody else, but a quick look at the maps and they soon realise they should be turning left here. At least they can see the funny side of it. Jonathan Turner's in 2 minds as well. Is it left or is it right? It's no good asking the film crew. But it's girlfriend Karen's first event, and I wouldn't like to handle the paperwork in an open car. Angela Riley knows it's left here, so David Bowles' peaking Paris Rover 3 litre goes serenely on its way. The corner continues to catch some out though. Is it straight on? Do we turn left? Hang on, it must be left. There's a film crew down there behind the bridge. little time lost and a friendly toot-toot, the Mini's on its way. The control at Saint-Philibert is relaxed. It's been an easy section, and even we've managed to clean it, which keeps us in good spirits.
Today we've headed off round here. We're now just south of Grenoble, and we've got all this run round here to do. To Sisteron this evening, and then the final blast in the early hours of the morning, right over, finishing on the Col de Turini, and then into Monte Carlo with a bit of luck and a fair wind. And that's our goal. Monte Carlo, about lunchtime tomorrow.
In the afternoon, the route heads south. There was a long regularity section where we and 10 others are held up for 10 minutes in a blockage of skiers' cars. Most of the rest of the section was downhill, and going like the clappers, we recover all but 58 seconds of that 10 minutes, which made it even more frustrating still. Soon it was time to cool off with a cup of tea at the brief rest halt in Cork, and it gave us a chance to have a wander around the car park and see some of the magnificent machinery on display. One driver claimed he had to do 90 miles an hour just to keep up with Sudjik's Bugatti Type 44, which made us laugh, as we can't even do 90 miles an hour in the Volvo. To make the navigator's job even more difficult, timing equipment has to be contemporary. There's no fancy modern electronic digital things for us. Rally leader Monte Carlo's having timing troubles too.
Well, today we have not been that lucky. I think that I have to organize my timing a little bit. I must go down on the timetable because we're driving too fast all the time. So I think we are lost 10 seconds to the other ones around us.
In the early 1960s, General Motors had a strictly no motorsport policy, and then the door opened slightly with the Vauxhall VX490.
The VX490 was one of three that Vauxhall built in the 60s, and it actually contended the Monte Carlo Rally in 63 and 64. The other two have disappeared, but this one's managed to survive and been restored, and I've now had it for a couple of years, so a lot of history.
It looks lovely. Some people would say it ought to be in a museum. What would you say to them?
Oh, I don't think so. I mean, obviously, I wouldn't want to seriously damage it, but I think cars are to be driven. It's no good having them and locking them away, basically, so no, let's use it.
As we enjoyed the welcome break, it dawned on us there are still 19 hours of this leg to run. What on earth will darkness bring, we wonder? Monte Carlo still leads with an immaculate display in a rather strange-sounding VW 1500, but not everyone will have such good fortune. The Danish Volvo number 84 will have a bad night, slipping from 6th right down to 100th, while Frank Fennell and Kevin Savage have a good run, moving from 14th to 5th overall in their similar Volvo. Dave Whittack and Ernie Waldron are 11th overall and leading the Classic Saloon class. Another to leap up the order, Anton Anderstegger, 32nd out of Annecy and 12th into Monte Carlo. Now why couldn't we do that? The route from Caen had taken us towards Saint-Bonnet, where we waste time finding the cafe with the passage control in the main street. To compound our misery, we get reversed into by a local. However, we make it to shore on time and then strike trouble. On the next regularity, we missed a hidden left in the darkness and went sailing on for 6.5 kilometres before retracing our steps and finding the control, but the damage was done. We weren't the only ones, but that was no consolation to us. And it was a disaster which probably dashed our last remaining hopes of making the top 60 and the Thursday night's run in the Alpes Maritime, which all along had been our goal. Tiredness was now beginning to tell on both Paul and myself, and we were starting to realise just how hard an event the Monte Carlo Challenge really was. If we thought we had it hard, just think how tough it was for the guys in the open top cars. We were heading for Sisteron and a well-earned 3-hour break, which I think by this stage everybody was looking forward to, not the least Paul and I. By the time we reached Sisteron for dinner, our spirits were fairly low. and the pizzeria was fresh out of pizzas, and that didn't help either. Also, trying to snatch 40 winks in a freezing cold rally car is no joke. Others, though, were happy with their performance, and Frank Zaff's Mercedes was still third overall behind the Korns K Volvo and the Carl & Molen VW 1500. David Hardman and son, in contrast, were pottering along in the Bentley, fitting in only those bits of the route they really fancied doing, which is probably the way to do it. Fatigue affects everyone, even Monty stalwarts, Prosser and Lyle.
Tonight's a long night. Yeah. Ask me about 4 o'clock in the morning. If I'm still awake, then we might do reasonably or keep the momentum going. But that 3 to 4 o'clock is my difficult time.
Neil Wilson had former US champion John Buffum with him last year and finished third. This year, things are not so good. We left Cicerone with 12 hours still to go on a route that wound its way backwards and forwards through the peaks of Provence before arriving at the top of the Turini for breakfast. Many of the roads were covered in ice and snow.
Just past a car that's gone straight off into the ditch on ice. All we've got to do tonight now is keep going. The reason I'm commentating is that I was too busy keeping the car on the road.
Jean Rondeau in the Jag number 86 had been well placed, but now disaster had struck and the fuel tank was split.
What's the problem?
It's knackered. It's broken.
As always, Peter and Betty Banham are on hand to lend a hand and shoo Paul away, who's having a fag. We were at TC37 at the foot of the Col de Blaine and had been having a good run, cleaning the last 10 sections when those around us in the field were dropping out like flies. Then came the 41 kilometres over the Col de Blaine and the Col de Pinpinière. We dropped 5 minutes on a section that was only cleaned by a dozen or so, but it did for us. Dawn broke in the village of La Baleine-Vesubie, the traditional starting point for the Turini, a stage in World Championship rallying which has remained unchanged for 45 years. The midfield runners check in as we await our section of the field to arrive. If we get a time here, make it up to the top of the Turini, and then get down into Monte Carlo, we'll qualify as finishers.
Hi there. We did it. How are you?
Tired.
One driver, relieved to have made it through the night, was an extremely tired-looking David Bull.
The hardest one at the 4th attempt. Hardest physically. Harder than any of the others. We've done complete up to now. This is the next to the last. We've completed. We've always cut out. But on this one, we've worked like hell and we've done the ball. So it's been good.
Jane Massam has time to linger over coffee as partner Wesley gives their VW a last-minute wash and brush up before the climb to the top of the Turini.
We're sitting here at the bottom of the Turini, and I must confess that the historic Monte Carlo challenge has got the better of Paul and I, and to a degree our car. The car was playing up a little bit again last night, but the reason for cutting 5 controls was not really the car's fault, it was ours. We were, to be perfectly frank, exhausted. We were buggered. Very, very tired, and we decided that discretion was the better part of valour. So we pulled in, had a kip for a couple of hours, cut 5 controls out. We're here at the bottom of the Turini. We'll be up at the top in about 40 minutes for breakfast. We will get down to Monte Carlo, and we will qualify for our finishers medal. But we're still a bit disappointed that we haven't done the whole route. The event has beaten us, but there's always next year. But I will tell anybody that's watching this that if anybody ever tells you that it's a leisurely gentleman's run down to Monte Carlo, which is what I was told about 2 months ago, they lie. It ain't. It's a bloody hard event, a very, very tough event, and well worth doing. And I think I'll be back for more next year.
And who was first to the top? Who else but Monte Carlo in that horrible sounding VW? The Germans in the big Mercedes stay third as they escort the tiny Austin 7 of Roger Gould and Brian Purves, third in the vintage class, an absolutely splendid performance in the little car. McRobert and Briggs have slipped from second to fourth overall during the hard night section. For the slower cars, the climb to the top of the Turini is fairly tight, so no time must be wasted getting to the control. The navigator jumps out, time card in hand, and rushes into the hotel. The table, where the control is just inside the door, and he slaps the time card down and records his time. Kevin Savage has guided Frank Fennell up to 5th place, and there's still the night run to come. Kevin too wastes no time sprinting into the hotel to get his time card stamped. All that remains now is the run down into Monte Carlo.
It's been the end of a long 4 or 5 days, I can tell you. But it feels good to be coming up to the Turini, one of the most famous special stages in rallying. And despite cutting some sections out during the night, we will finish the rally, and that's an achievement in itself.
Down on the harbour front in good old Monte Carlo, and former Dutch rallycross ace Bart Rietbergen is not happy with his 33rd place, but at least he's made the top 60 and will be out again tonight, which is more than we will. As the early arrivals relax with a cleansing ale, Dave Whittock and Ernie Waldron bring the Mini Cooper S across the finish ramp in Monte Carlo. They were classified 11th at this point, but in the final 200-kilometre blast in the hills above Monte Carlo on the final night were to drop down to 15th overall. Nevertheless, they took the coveted Classic Saloon category, a great result. Peter Noble was 4th in the vintage class, 10 hours behind the Austin 7. Nevertheless, they'd thoroughly enjoyed their rally, as indeed had everyone else. A lineup of tired cars stand on the quayside. Their drivers wait to hear if they've made the top 60 and a chance to have another thrash around the Alpes Maritimes to decide the final positions. They'll all be led off by Monte Carlo. But how does he account for his phenomenal success on this event in the VW 1500?
Well, I think it's an important reason is that I've done the modern Monte 21 times, which means that I know this district quite well, and that's a help. I know how the roads go, I know how to go through the villages, and I know how roads are signposted, so it's very important to have been here sometimes before.
As Paul and I enjoy a celebration drink and a relaxing dinner, the top 60 crews head off to do battle in the hills behind Monte Carlo. Well, not quite 60 cars. Jonathan Turner in the XK140 should have joined them, but he proposed to co-driver Karen on the finish ramp that afternoon. She accepted, and they were still celebrating. And why not? It's not every day you compete on your first event, finish in the top 60, and get proposed to into the bargain. No proposals for John Vipond, just firm instructions from Gerald Braithwaite to keep his act together and stay on the right route. With the inside of their Mini lit up like Blackpool illuminations, he shouldn't have any trouble reading the map. The village of Les Carènes, everyone tucked up and safe in bed, except those running the control in the village cafe, who lend loud vocal support every time a rally car hoves into view. McRobert and Briggs improved 1 place during the night and were to finish 3rd overall, mainly due to the demise of the big Mercedes of Frank Zapp, who lost 13 minutes on 1 section alone. Despite professing to know the roads like the back of his hand, every little track, in and out of the villages, all the secret little routes, Monte Carlo heads off in the wrong direction, proving that even the best can make mistakes. As Prosser and Lyle and the Sunbeam Alpine come into the control, they will finish 7th, Monte Carlo heads back through the village safely on the right route. And so he went on to take his 3rd consecutive win. Only 5 cars cleaned the final nighttime section, including Braithwaite and Vipond in the Little Mini, who moved up 1 place to 5th overall. The event proved once again Philip Young's pre-start prophecy that the Monte Carlo Challenge really is the toughest historic rally. Too tough even for past British rally champion Russell Brooks.
I've not been very well, so we've had to cut most of the last night of the rally. But what a fabulous event. Really enjoyed it. It's rallying as it used to be. It is absolutely fabulous.
Paul and I brought Gladys home in 75th place. The event certainly gets a thumbs up from us. We'll be back for more next year.